Stellar Blade is a game I've been cautiously optimistic about, featuring challenging combat and the most state-of-the-art butt-jiggling physics. Stellar Blade has been getting a ton of attention, both good and bad, for its sexy protagonist, but I don't see enough people actually talking about the game. So, does Stellar Blade actually live up to all the hype that has surrounded it? Developed by Shift Up, known for their mobile game Nike, Goddess of Victory, and developed by Sony, Stellar Blade is a PlayStation 5 exclusive action-adventure game with gorgeous visuals and difficult yet satisfying combat. The game openly takes a lot of influence from Nier Automata, creating a mysterious plot around humans, androids, and the alien monsters known as Nativas that inhabit a post-apocalyptic Earth. You play as Eve, a member of the airborne force based out in space, with a mission to destroy these Nativas at the command of the mysterious Mother Sphere. In my preview video, I mentioned that I wasn't sure what Eve and Taki were. Are they robots, cyborgs, part humans, or what? What are we working with here? Well, it turns out there's a reason for some of that confusion, so I don't want to go too deep into that, but yeah, I guess I'll just leave it there. We'll just call her a robot, I guess, for the sake of it. When it comes to Stellar Blade, there's a pretty good story here, and I do like the late game twists, but unlike Nier, where I'd say the narrative is practically the highlight of that game, with Stellar Blade, yeah, there is story here, but you're probably gonna wanna just get back to the action. The combat is really solid, but it might take a little bit to get comfortable with. This isn't really a game where you can rush in and just mash your way through enemies, rather you must play defensively. Nailing perfect dodges, blocks, and parries it's all pivotal to your success. While I sometimes struggled with the timing, especially early on, you will find that once you start getting some experience and have some points to spend in your skill trees, you can actually upgrade your parries and dodges and stuff. Personally, I feel like that should have just been the default because these are the most obvious things to upgrade. But once I upgraded those skills and once I improved a little bit myself, I was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. Through these skill trees, you'll obtain more abilities, burst attacks, and all kinds of ways to improve Eve's survivability, which you'll need to do because even the regular enemies hit hard as hell and can likely take you down with just a few strong hits. These enemies, the monstrous alien Nativas, they come in all kinds of grotesque shapes and sizes. Some of them are humanoid-looking mutants that would not be out of place in, like, Resident Evil. A few of them even seem to take the form of animals and insects. Kind of some Parasite Eve vibes there. But the big ones, yeah, those are the ones that are called the Alpha Nativas, and they make up for the boss fights. These boss battles are really awesome. The Alpha Nativas will wreck your shit real quick until you learn their patterns and when to look out for the big attacks. One thing that can be a bit frustrating is if you miss like your first parry and the enemy is going for a combo of blows, you won't get time to recover and you're likely going to get beat down hard. So you gotta master these parries or you're gonna be toast. When approaching these bosses, you're gonna want to take down their shields first, as your damage is gonna be pretty light until you do so. Once the shields are taken down, it's time to go to town with your strongest attacks, and usually these bosses have multiple phases where they'll do a big attack, or sometimes just get really mad or boost their stats or whatever, bring up their shields again. After hitting a certain amount of parries, you can also land a stylish retribution attack, and these are brutal as hell. So these big fights against the Alpha Nativas, I thought I had a lot of fun with those, and I thought they were the perfect amount of challenge. That is, until I ran into the endgame boss rush. Of course, I don't want to spoil anything. I'm just saying there's a huge difficulty spike at the end, and I found it a bit tiring. After the second fight, I just dropped it down to the easy mode to finish up the game, because, man, I'm not the kind of guy that can have fun just spending 20 or whatever attempts at a boss fight. I know a lot of gamers love that kind of shit, but I do not have the patience for that. There is an easy mode, right? So that's called story mode, and that tones down the fights quite a bit and has a toggle for slowdowns for with dodges. So if you want to become familiar with the enemy attack patterns, that's probably the best way you could do that. And if you just want to really focus on the story, this mode's for you. I only did the one fight here, so I really can't say much for it. Outside of the combat, though, you'll find the meat of the game is made up of exploring a handful of different zones in search of power cores, and then returning to your hub town to do some upgrading, shopping, and then move along the main quest. And let me put some context to that. So Eve is part of that defense force that is sent to Earth to win back the planet for humanity. Unfortunately, her team is pretty quickly destroyed, and she is fortunately found by a handsome and very dull man named Adam, who brings her to the struggling city of Zion. And this place is that hub town that I mentioned. It's home to the surviving humans. You'll shop, accessorize, get your hair did. You'll pick up some side quests too, of course, but honestly, I only found like a couple of them to be really very interesting at all. I wanted to help out that shy little girl, Kaya, with her missing sister. Plus, she runs a shop, and you'll visit this one pretty often, so I kind of felt bad just not helping her out. I also really enjoyed a quest line around Sue, this bar owner, and Enya, who is this pre-war android woman who sings on stage at the bar. Her song has this haunting melody that really stuck with me, and the two have a really cute side story that I thought had a pretty good ending. As I mentioned, Zion is home to the surviving humans, and you'll have to uncover the mystery surrounding Nativas, the androids, the AI Mother Sphere, and yeah, I'll say it's a pretty good sci-fi plot. It is very clearly influenced by Nier Automata, but there's nothing wrong with taking influence from Nier Automata. I had a lot of fun with that game as well. Eve herself, well, she's alright. She's definitely not the most interesting protagonist as far as personality goes, but understandably, she is supposed to be a kind of character who is out of their environment. She learns about Earth as we the players do, and I was happy to see some emotions come out of Eve towards the end of the game when she begins to understand just how effed up her situation is. From a design perspective, I know a lot of people found her default appearance to be super gorgeous and sexy, and I agree, she's pretty, but I found her style to be a little bit regular. I don't know. Luckily, you can unlock all kinds of different hairstyles and colors and glasses, and of course, there are outfits. And these outfits go hard and range from spacey to classy to sexy to weird. And I was happy to see there's a ton of variety here without making you drop any money on DLC or anything either. So I got my Eve kind of looking like a Evangelion character. I think that's pretty cool. So as far as customization goes, I really like what they did here. And the hair physics too. I'm genuinely impressed. Eve is a character released with a bit of controversy surrounding her, but it's ultimately controversy that is unnecessary and kind of overblown. She's a sexy character because sex sells, and I guess maybe this is a time in the gaming industry where there's not a lot of sexy anime girls coming out in video games. As far as I'm aware, there hasn't been a shortage, but okay. But she's not really a sexual character like Bayonetta, who was fully aware of her sex appeal. Instead, she's just an attractive robot-seeming woman in a world where hot robot girls are humanity's best chance at winning the war for Earth. Why would they make her hot? I mean, let's be real here. If humans ever do make functioning AI humanoid robots, you bet your ass the first thing we do is put tits on them. So anyway, let's move on from that. Next up, we've got Adam, and this guy, he's alright too, I guess. I'll say the game does a great job at making you question his motives. He seems like a nice guy and genuinely trustworthy, but there's something just kinda off about him. And there is some decent payoff there, and I like what they do with the character. I don't know, just maybe it's because I did play the game with the English cast. He was just kind of bland. But he's not bad, though. He's not bad. Then we've got Lily. She's your engineer type character. She's very anime behaving, but that's okay because the game definitely needed something a little more lighthearted going around, considering Eve and Adam are kind of dry. Lily is actually a survivor from a previous squad, similar to Eve's, and she tags alongside Eve's journey as sort of a naive foil to Eve, as Eve discovers, hey, maybe this Mother Sphere thing kinda sucks. Lily is there to be like, no way, Mother Sphere is perfect and awesome and always knows what's best. So I kinda like what they do with that. But I can see why some people might find her character to be a little bit annoying, because she is, like I said, very anime behaving. Then the last central character to the Zion plot is Oracle. He's this wise old mysterious man, kind of creepy, but he seems to be a good guy, a prophet of sorts, and he seems to be the guy in charge of Zion. He's basically your main quest giver, and he sets up the plot around gathering these power cores to save the city of Zion and its inhabitants. So when we head outside of Zion, you'll be exploring the wastelands that make up Earth, some deserts, and even some zones that take place outside of Earth, but I won't go too far into that stuff. Some zones are a little bigger than others, like the desert feels like a pretty large, satisfying area to explore. There is some light platforming here and there, and some puzzle solving, along with a whole lot of turning the power back on. This is fine, but definitely feels very video gamey and not super organic the 100th time that you have to go swim under something to go find a dead guy with a password, and that you go use that password to turn the power back on to something to open a door. A lot of that kind of stuff. Oh, and there's swimming, and it sucks. But there is fishing, and that's not too bad. I like that the controls are a little more engaging than some fishing mini-games in other video games I've played, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time messing around with it. I think in my next playthrough, I actually will check this out a little bit more. I'm curious about the rewards, and I'm curious about that quest with the fish guy. Speaking of collecting, Eve's real passion in life is collecting as many of these unique cans as she can. As many cans as she can find. There are 49 of them to gather, but I think I only found maybe about half of them on my first run. There appears to be a drone upgrade that you can use to make it easier, but I didn't use that. I will say that each of them has like a unique pose that Eve goes with it, and they're all super cute. So I do like the can minigame. Outside of regular exploration, a couple selection... Can we call that a can thing a minigame? Probably not. Okay, whatever. You know, the can stuff, I did like it. So anyway, outside of regular exploration, a couple sections of the game take away your blade and force you to go gun mode. I didn't mention yet, there's guns too. And these segments are actually really fun, and surprisingly not too difficult, but outside of those, I would often forget that I even have a gun. You do get a variety of ammo types, but ultimately they all felt really weak when compared to just going for parries and using your burst attacks, and I don't know, didn't really find the point of it. Visually though, most of these areas look really good, but the rundown environments can feel a bit dull at times. The soundtrack is beautiful, and as you explore these bleak, broken down areas, it'll be accompanied with some really great music. The team that composed the music also worked on Nier Automata, and that's clear from the very beginning of the game. It's really great stuff. Unfortunately, I did find that some of the songs got a little bit repetitive, but the music is still really, really good. The main game can be beaten in around 20 hours, although your mileage will vary depending on how much of that side content and fishing you end up doing, but for me, I found it to be about the perfect length for an action game like this. Especially after putting over like 120 hours into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the pacing in Stellar Blade is right on the money for a game like this. After beating the game, you do unlock a hard mode and a new game plus. With the new game plus, you carry over your gears and skills and all your costumes and everything, and you get a new set of outfit variations to unlock, as well as additional skills and more weapon levels. I didn't beat the new game plus yet, but I've been enjoying it. I will say it seems like it's designed to be a little bit easier right off the bat, although the boss fights are definitely I think the boss fights are still a little bit easier at first. I do expect that the late game will probably get unnecessarily difficult though, so I'm not sure. We'll see how far I get into that. If you're looking for an insane challenge, though, you can just go straight into the hard mode with a fresh save file, and from what I've gathered, this is a brutal difficulty that can be a lot of fun if that's your thing. Like I mentioned, that's not my thing, but to each their own. Without going into spoilers, the game does nicely leave room for a sequel, and after the game's success, yeah, I don't doubt we'll be seeing a follow-up at some point. Unfortunately for now, the game is stuck on the PlayStation 5, but seeing as other Sony games have found their way to PC and get Steam releases eventually, I think we'll probably see a PC version sometime in the future. Overall, I would definitely recommend this game if you're looking for an action game with tight sword mechanics and challenging boss fights, if you're looking for a game with a lot of gore, a ton of gratuitous booty shots. Well, it doesn't get a whole lot better than this. And while Stellar Blade isn't the most unique concept to hit the market, who cares? It's a damn fun game.